Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Well, it's not Valentine's Day. It's now the day after Valentine's Day, which Valentine's Day was supposed to be the day, but hey, there's always something going on. So welcome to the show, Tracy McBurney, because this is your time and your space for allowing us to heal. You always do some amazing work. And I have to say that, pretty much after every show we do, I feel a lot better. So thank you as always.
Yeah. Thank you for, inviting me here again. And it's interesting you say the day after Valentine's Day when I smile. And, my husband and I had a very interesting Valentine's Day in the sense that there was no chocolate, there was no flowers, there was no buying a card, there was none of it. I had no energy for any of that. I had no time for any of that. And I said because I'm rehabbing a leg issue, and it's sometimes really exhausting, and it's been kind of an interesting journey to unwrap some of the things that this leg issue, so to speak, has been about. And so I went into the kitchen yesterday afternoon about 1 and said, I'm going to make a peanut butter sandwich for myself. Would you like one? Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And he said, I love a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I haven't had one of those for years. You're going to make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while you're making yours? And I'm going, yeah. He said, so we're doing that for Valentine's Day. And I'm going, yeah. So he was just so cute. He was taking me to a physiotherapy appointment at 3:30. And so we're sharing our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches before we went. And when I came back, he'd fallen asleep in the car for a bit instead of doing some work. He was waiting for me. And I said, you didn't go down the street to get coffee? He said, no, I was waiting for you. I thought we'd go do that together. I'm like, okay. So Valentine's Day, because I had no desire to go anywhere for dinner. We could have. We had the free. It's like, no, I didn't want to waste the money. I just wasn't feeling like it. I said, let's put it off, do it for a different night or not do it at all. So our Valentine's Day was a sharing of a chai latte and for him a coffee, which was a big treat because he doesn't drink coffee a lot. Mm. 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that he, for whatever reason, I have no idea, seemed quite excited were being made for him, which I thought was hysterical. Yeah. And even at the end of the night when we were going to bed, he said, and we watched 2 episodes of Yellowstone, the last of the series, because I said to him, listen, for Valentine's Day, why don't you just blow it and just buy the 5th season, dear. Just get out of your way and just buy the 5th season. He's been so upset with the buying of this 5th season. He's been so incensed by this. I said, why don't we just give this to ourselves? So he's just about to push the button on that and then said, we really should revisit the 4th season because I don't really remember. And so part of Valentine's Day was the watching of the last couple of episodes of Yellowstone before we went to bed. And he was still talking about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich as we were heading to bed. And I just thought, who would have thought it, that a peanut butter and jelly sandwich made by me, given to him, was going to have such a powerful impact on Valentine's Day. So there you go. I'm just going to say it. Nice. You never know. And it cost me nothing. So anyway, it was an interesting day, but it was a lovely day. Okay, so here we are. So I said to you before we started the call that maybe today's just going to be one of those days where I speak about some personal things that are going on in my world in hopes that as I speak about them, it might make sense to some other people who might be listening, because it's been a little bit of an interesting journey. So this is my leg issue that now turns into, seems like a knee issue, which then isn't just a knee issue. It seems to connect to an ankle issue that seems to connect to an old foot injury.
Wow. Okay.
And so it's almost like, so from a physiological perspective, it seems that it's going back there. It's going back to an old foot injury from a time where I am just walking along a dock on vacation, minding my own business, looking out. So looking out at the water, looking ahead at whatever this is, step on a cleat on the dock that's binding two big pieces of dock together, and I don't see it. It goes right into my foot. Excruciating pain, not in an arch, but in the top kind of ball of my foot, kind of in a section between the fourth toe and the fifth toe. I had no idea at that time that I actually ended up with a hairline fracture from that particular injury that I didn't recognize for quite a long time. So it's not healing that time, not really. And so if you think about it, what am I doing at that time? But I'm looking out. I'm not looking down. So as I'm doing all of this, having a problem walking downstairs and all the stuff that's going on now, I'm spending a lot of time looking down, a lot of time looking at where my feet are, what's going on with my feet. And, you know, you kind of sit there and go, wow. And all of that began from a moment in time where you made the mistake of not looking at where your feet were in time and space as you're walking along a dock. Like you were looking somewhere else. You were looking out at the horizon. You were looking out at what was possible. You were looking out at the beautiful view, the water, whatever it was, just the beautiful joy of that, and then not looking where you're supposed to have been looking. It's amazing what the brain will create. Not looking where you're supposed to be looking, which is down. And now, all these years later, because it really is all these years later, what am I caught in but a loop of looking down, of not making the same mistake that I made then, which is looking out at something that's joyful, looking out at something that's beautiful, looking out at whatever it was, and not looking where you're supposed to have been looking, which is at your feet, where your feet were. And the anger around that, the judgment around that, the criticism around that. So one of the things that I needed to do was go through a process of really recognizing, oh, this is a leg issue, but it really began with a foot issue. That took a while to figure out that the leg issue that became such a big issue actually started with a foot issue. And it took a really lovely person that I was working with in Body Talk to be able to do a Body Talk session for me to pull all of that in, that my body was willing to tell her that, was willing to reach beyond this being a leg issue to bring me back into something that was a remembered foot issue. And then ankle weakness. And yeah, it was very fascinating. So there have been several very, very, very beautiful Body Talk sessions that have happened to bring me into some awarenesses and to, in one instance, an active memory. So also just to say, because I don't know if I even mentioned this leg issue previously, but the pain in this leg got so excruciating at one point. And the Healy device and the things that I'd learned and the lymph drainage and the things that I knew and had expertise were not working. They were working and then not working. It's like lymph was moving and then pooling again almost instantly. And I was just getting really upset by the fact that, wow, that all the stuff that I have, all the beautiful skill sets I have, they just were not working. To the point where the pain just got excruciating, to the point where I couldn't even walk down the stairs. Like I could not walk down the stairs. I could not bend my knee, bend my leg. And I was on my way down the stairs that day, and my son saw me as he was trying to get up the stairs. He was like, "Mom, you're really in trouble. Like, I think you need to go to the hospital." I said, "Funny that you're saying that to me, because I was just on my way down the stairs to say exactly that to your dad, that I wanted him to take me to emergency, because now I was beginning to wonder whether I had a blood clot in my leg." Because that was the only thing I could reach to, was something like that, something that was now not in my wheelhouse, something that my body was now stopping everything else from happening, because maybe it was trying to stop a clot from moving. Like there was a reason why things were being stopped, and maybe now I needed the doctors to tell me what was going on, because the stuff that I was doing just wasn't shifting. So I ended up in the emergency. And I got some great care in the emergency at East York General Hospital. So I'm just going to say that right out loud. And the Michael Guerin wing was open just that day. So I was one of the first people to be on their ultrasound, new equipment, which broke down actually on that day. So they had to reboot it. It was pretty funny. But there was nobody there on that night that I was there getting this ultrasound. Right. It was interesting to see what they do to actually check for a blood clot in a leg. And it's not what they used to do. And so they were able to very quickly be able to ascertain that there was no presence of a blood clot in the areas that would be problematic. It was also interesting to know that with littler blood clots that are in the lower calf of the leg, if they ever see them or can see them, they're really not concerned about them because the body will eat them. And so they're not really concerned about those sorts of blood clots. So I'm going to say that out loud to people, that they're not really concerned about some of those blood clots that you might have because they're really little and the body's going to eat them. They're concerned about the bigger ones that come above the calf. And so they weren't finding any of that. And then he was wondering whether there was a Baker's cyst. So Baker's cyst being something that they figured would create that kind of excruciating pain, whether it burst or whether it didn't. They couldn't tell whether it was a Baker's cyst that had burst, but they could definitely see that there was no presence of Baker's cyst, and they could see that there was water everywhere around the bones of the knee and the cartilage of the knee. So there was water everywhere.
So is that inflammation?
Well, it is inflammation. It's also what they call water. So that was also interesting because I learned something about water around organs or around body parts from my father having water around his heart. And so my father has now passed away, but one of the things that they were trying to manage was water around his heart. And so what we learned from that, what I learned, the takeaway that I learned from that is when you have water around something, it's signaling to the medical profession that there's a problem in that area because there's now water around it. So now I have
it, right?
Yeah. So now I have water around my knee. So they were a little surprised that I had all this water around my knee, but I had no story of injury.
Right.
I had no story of falling on that knee, having a ski accident on that knee, like some old story. I had no story of that. In fact, even when I put my foot on that cleat, there was no story of falling. I just put my foot on that cleat. The cleat went right up into that foot, created excruciating pain, but there was no story of falling. So they were a little confused by that. They're like, well, and so it was interesting too, the emergency doctor who said, well, I've done my job tonight. I've been able to tell you that there's no blood clot. I didn't think there would be a blood clot based on the color of your leg. Also an interesting piece of information for people to know, since blood clots are such a big deal these days, is that when they see blood clot potential, they see white tracks. Oh. They say when you got blood clots that are actually there, then you're going to see white happening into the skin because there's no blood traveling in those areas. So I thought that's an interesting takeaway too. So I thought, all right, so I have some interesting takeaways. He felt that he'd done his job that night. He basically said, I'm going to leave the rest of this to your family doctor. I laughed and said, I don't have one of those. And he said, oh yeah, you and a lot of other people. And I said, well, so what can you do about that? And he's like, well, I can give you this piece of paper with a whole bunch of clinics on it, and hopefully you'll find one there. And it's like, okay, fine. And so I literally left the emergency ward in as much excruciating pain as I'd been in before I got there. But now I knew that this excruciating pain had nothing to do with a blood clot. And it was water. And so I was taking away water. I was taking away that this body part was telling me it was having a problem because water was there.
Right.
I didn't know what the problem was, but the medical world has told me that that's what they know, is that there's a problem there. Mm-hmm. So I'm going, okay, I got a problem there, and I'm going to let my divine in to this problem. Now, I already had let this divide in, but now what they were saying to me was, this really is a knee thing. It really is a knee thing. That's what we're seeing. This problem really is about your knee. So your leg might be showing up in pain, but really it's about your knee. So, okay. And there's lots of water where there shouldn't be water. Okay. Excellent. So it was, and the recommendations that they had for reducing pain, none of them worked. So they were only recommending Voltaren and they were recommending Advil. Advil wasn't working for me in the sense that it was decreasing muscle strength for me, and I was already finding muscle strength to be an issue. Yeah. Like, in other words, if you think about it, you weaken a little bit when you get yourself relaxed. The muscles get relaxed. Oh. They're not as available. They're relaxed. Makes it a little harder on Advil to get off a toilet when you're having a real problem in pain getting off a toilet. So I thought Advil's not my issue. It's not my go-to. I want to continue to be able to get off that toilet and not take my muscles to a place of weakness so they can't function better. For me, in that moment when I want them to contract and do their job. So there I was with my problem, more connecting to my knee, and enter body talk. So that's when body talk enters, the very next day when I talk to my girlfriend and say, hey, can we do a body talk session? And yes, I had this knee problem, but I was willing to not make it the agenda. So, meaning I was not going into body talk saying, I am here because I have a knee problem. And now I want help with my knee problem. I want help with this section of my body called my knee problem. I was open to working with her in the wholeness of my beingness to say, help me in the wholeness of my beingness. I'm just in a problem. Not I'm having a knee problem, going to a knee surgeon to sort out my knee problem. It's like, no, my wholeness of my body is in a problem. So help me with the wholeness of my body. And she did a beautiful job.
Nice.
So this is when she was able to reach back and to see in the wholeness of my body that there was something that went right back to my foot, right back to a foot injury, went back to that time, went back to a time where I was then criticizing myself for not being looking where I was going, angry at myself. So one of the interesting pieces that was a repeating pattern when I was finding all of these things was anger to myself for what I had not done. Or for the gullibility. In one instance, it was anger at myself for my gullibility, my easily led down some path. So one of the things that's happened with this knee, leg thing blowing up is that I have now looked at 3 individual issues where I have been angry at myself, like really angry at myself. And each time that they have risen up to be seen, I have been able to find that I'm still holding this in body. I can still feel it in my body. I'm still holding it. So what is the consequence of continuing to hold anger in your body? Self-criticism in your body. There will be physical consequence. Guaranteed there'll be physical consequence.
Sure.
There'll be consequence that we might call atherosclerosis, that we might call hardening of the arteries. The hardening of a heart that's not so joyful anymore. A heart that's just more crystallized, more distanced, more detached, more hardened, more angry. Crueler, maybe. Who knows? A change of heart, not for the better. Not a softening of heart, a hardening of it. I was able to find in one of those instances, which was an instance that just occurred yesterday, the newest one, yesterday, where I went to my physio Cody, my husband, had put his hand on my leg the night before. He's actually really quite good at this. And I said, just kind of feel and just see if something's coming up. And he just said sadness. He said sadness. There's sadness there. I don't know where the sadness is coming from, but there's sadness there. I thought, okay, interesting. Where there'd been anger, 3 times I'd looked at 3 different individual, what I call active memories that were still there, still in the system, mind, body, still there, still in the cells, still being contained by the water. So what do I mean by that? Our bodies are filled with water. I love saying this to clients. Our bodies are filled with water. Water has an intelligence. That's why I love working with tissue salts. You take the tissue salt in, you let it dissolve in your mouth. It's little tiny little minerals, tiny little microscopic minerals that are going to go right to the cells of the body, that are going to go right to the very particular cells of the body that are needing those minerals, needing those spark plugs. Well, what does that job? The water intelligence. So you take in those tissue salts, you let them go right through the linings of your mouth, right underneath your tongue, right into your tongue, right into the bloodstream, and take a few sips of water and pay attention. Where are those beautiful liquid light minerals going? Minerals are carriers of light. Where are they going? Where has the water intelligence taken them? That beautiful water intelligence that will take those beautiful minerals, those beautiful nutrients everywhere that they need to go. The water intelligence also 8% of the blood. Well, the water also holds things. So I'm going to make this real for you in the sense that think of something that you know. You don't have to share it on air, but think of something that you know is going on in your life right now that's got some emotional connection to it. Like you said to me earlier, I'm so frustrated. Maybe that's a clue. Maybe it's not. I don't want to lead you. But think of a moment in time where you know that you're holding on to something emotional. You know that you are. Maybe you know you've held on for weeks. Maybe you're giving yourself an opportunity to go back and think about something that you know is there and it's been there for years. Just tell me when you have it. Oh, whatever it is, whatever. You got it? Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. Here's the question for you. Come down to heart. Desire to connect to the water. Let the water show you what it looks like, because it's holding this for you and it will hold it for you like a loyal servant. What does it look like? Because it's holding this for you. Let it show you that.
I just keep seeing the snowflakes of Dr. Emoto's work of the dirty ones.
Yeah, the dirty ones, dirty snowflakes. Okay.
Yeah. I think I still have them on my website too.
Okay. Before you made it hold this, because it's your decision, your absolute adamant decision to hold this, not let it go. Leave it as active memory, not literally let it flow through the diaphragm and out through the body, but held as active memory. Where was the water before you got it holding this? Where was it? Let it show you the picture of where it was before you wanted it to hold this.
You mean, what did it look like?
Yeah, what did it look like?
I have to say, I've probably been holding a lot of stuff for a very, very, very long time.
That's fine, but it was different. It was different. Few minutes. Yeah. So what's it showing you then?
Well, I'm going to have to go with the same as yours. It's deep, deep sadness.
Okay. And
feeling
what's the picture? What's the water? So if the water's holding that deep sadness, what does the water look like as it's holding that?
It's definitely different than the...
It'll show you a picture. Let the breath, I'm saying to your lovely brain, let it come in. Let it come in. It's not for you, brain, to create this. Let it come in. The water will work directly with the brain. Let it come in. You, brain, are receiver. You, head brain, are receiver. It's one of the most important skill sets that you have to be able to help somebody understand their own level of consciousness.
So instead of seeing the snowflakes, I'm seeing more colors.
Okay.
So there's a lot of blue.
Uh-huh.
A little bit of pink.
Uh-huh.
Some yellow.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of blue.
Uh-huh.
Kind of messes it up a bit. Like it makes it more, I'm not going to say muddy because it's not like the frustration. That was kind of dirty looking, brownish kind of.
Uh-huh. Now, are these snowflakes still, or are these?
No, it's almost like it's almost like water. Like it's like
okay, water with these colors in it.
Yeah, lake.
And is it tumultuous water? Is it smooth water?
Okay. So it has waves.
Okay. Big waves, little waves, crashing waves.
It varies on where I'm holding. It varies on where and what I'm thinking about.
Okay. All right. And that's true. That's exactly what happens with the water. That's exactly what happens with water. Now, we're going to do something interesting, taking you back to your 5th birthday. I know nothing about your 5th birthday, and maybe you don't remember your 5th birthday, and you don't have to remember your 5th birthday, but your body and the water does.
Okay, no, I do remember it.
So let your body...
They tried to get me into kindergarten early because, so I got tested for it. I was able to go. It's just that they have a cutoff of January 5th and I'm January 24th. So I do remember it because I was disappointed that I didn't get to go to school that year.
Okay.
I'd wait another.
Okay. Interesting that we chose this.
Yeah.
So we don't know if you're holding that feeling of sadness and disappointment. And it's interesting that they said 5th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Let the water show you what water was like on your 5th birthday.
It's a little wavier.
Flowing?
Sorry?
Is it flowing? Is the water flowing?
It's kind of really wavy, like turbulent.
Uh-huh. Let the water show you your 4th birthday.
Less wavy, still some waves.
Flowing?
Flowing. Yeah.
Let's go back to your 2nd birthday. Let's go back to your 2nd birthday.
Mm.
2nd birthdays are interesting because our brain can't compare ourselves to anything on our 2nd birthday. It doesn't have the ability to do that. So we're just sitting there as us. So on your 2nd birthday, what's the water like on your 2nd birthday?
I have this very, very strange memory of 2. And I don't know if it was my 2nd birthday. I'm going to think it was probably more spring, so maybe a couple months after. But I remember it felt like I was waking up for the first time. Like prior to that, I knew everybody. I knew everything around me, but I have this memory of waking up. I'm sitting on a table with my mom and she was shearing puppies. She used to breed poodles. And they were so cute until they got French poodled. I don't know why she did that. Years later, when I got my Persian kitten, she said, my grandma used to have Persian. She goes, I wished I had Persian kittens. We got poodles and we could have had Persian kittens. Really? Anyway.
That's pretty funny.
But I have this memory of sitting on it. It's like I woke up.
And what was the water like that day? What's the water? Let the water show you the water that day.
Clear. Like almost.
Flowing?
Very flowing, but like light coming out of it.
Right.
Like hello.
Right. Hello.
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 I had trauma, lots of trauma before that, but it's like that moment, it was like, hello, I'm here. Right. I'm here now.
I'm here. You are always here.
Mm.
one of the, as Rika Zimmerman would say, one of the 6 divine truths. You, the greater you, big YOU, are always here. This was a conscious moment when you got it, and then you forgot it.
No.
And then you got lost in a bunch of other things. What if we could take this that we just got led back to because you allowed for it? I guided you back to your 2nd birthday and you wanted to come here instead. What if we could take this moment, this beautiful moment where the water was, and make a choice to allow the you in present time, the overlay of this coming into that. What would happen to the dirty snowflakes if we let that beautiful water, so clear with light coming through it, which is the truth of you, overlay itself, lay itself down, bring it right in to the water experience that you're still troubled by? Any of them. Because in any of these water experiences that you've had where the water is holding all of this stuff, you're not with that you. You're not as clear as you were on that day of the truth and the light of you. There, always there. Or another way of saying it would be to allow that light that you knew then, that you had connection with then, to come into the water that is now frozen like snowflakes and dirty.
It melts them.
And then what happens to the dirt?
Yeah, I was just looking at the dirt. It's like, it's settling. Does that make sense? It's like it's going down, settling somewhere. I don't know that that's a good thing, but let's not judge.
Well, settling, but the light is with all of it.
So it hasn't hit the dirt that came from the snowflakes yet.
Well, maybe because it's just busy melting the snowflakes, melting the frozen.
Melting the frozen.
Melting the numb.
Interesting.
I knew myself that day then. Just a little after my 2nd birthday, I knew myself. I came into an understanding of myself. But then I couldn't come back to that place. I didn't reach back to that place. It's almost like I experienced it and then it was gone. Like an experience that I had, but then I never had again. An experience that I had, but then I had all these other experiences. And in all these other experiences where my water is still holding loyally like a servant, these experiences for me, there's no light. There's no light of me coming into any of it.
In the past, when I've remembered this, it almost felt like, and I know they say your soul usually has grounded by then, but it's almost like that was the day my soul decided to ground in my body. It'd gone through all of the trauma that I'd gone through with the adoption and all of that stuff. And that day, it felt like my soul finally felt okay to anchor. Does that make sense? And I don't know if that's the truth, but.
Well, maybe it's that your soul didn't want to be such an active participant in all of this stuff that had gone on before, but came into the mind-body experience then, so it's going to still be a part of it.
Of course, just was above instead of in.
And so let's say that was done for very mindful reasons.
Sorry, for?
That it was done for very mindful reasons, that the soul was not then contaminated.
Yes.
Dirty, contaminated, corrupted by those earlier experiences.
Yeah. I think that was an intentional truth for sure.
Right. And you had a very powerful experience where you had a conscious and an unconscious understanding of your own light.
As a 2-year-old.
Right.
as conscious as a 2-year-old can be. Yes.
Right. And now we're using that to help to unwrap you from some water experiences, some active memory experiences where the water is still holding for you those events, those emotions, those times where the presence of your own light was not in that water. But you know that that light of you can go right into that water, is part of that water. And you know that it flows well. You know what that is. You know what that feels like. You know, it can be clear. This is what I've been doing a little bit differently, but this is what I've been doing to help with my leg, knee, foot issue.
Interesting.
In my own way, I bring bringing my own light into the water, into what has been holding in the water, making a conscious choice to say to this beautiful water, I don't want you holding old memories now, old experiences. I don't want this for myself. I don't want this for all the cells that are involved in this. Because I don't think it's just the cells of this knee. If I'm holding anger issues towards myself, of course that's going to impact heart. Of course that's going to potentially impact blood vessels and arteries and blood boiling, whatever. It's like way more than the knee is being impacted. It's just the water around the knee, the water in the leg is showing me the problem, is giving me clues. But the problem is a problem of wholeness. Wholeness is having a problem.
Yeah.
And I can get some really cool clues from the leg. I can be taken back to some really cool times, like the time that I put the cleat into my foot and the words, how stupid am I? You know, why wasn't I looking down? You know, why was I looking over here? Why was I so taken in by this beauty? Why was I so taken in by this scenery? Why was I so stupid not to be looking in the direction I needed to look? And now the brain hearing those things. I should have been looking down. I need to be looking down more. I need to be watching where I'm going more. Oh, okay. That's the solution. I need to be watching where I'm going more. Well, was that a divinely guided thought? No. Is it governing? Yes. Is it guiding? Yes. Is it deciding? Yes. Is it creating patterns? Yes. Is it creating programming? Yes. Was it divinely guided? No. Did I allow for my own light, my own God sense, my own divine to enter into that issue, to enter into that problem, to enter into the foot that was so sore that day? No, I wasn't even thinking that way. I was not operating as a spiritual person like I am now then. There was no thinking like that. Lovely scientist whose name is just not even going to be one I can quote to you today. Dr. Rosa, and she invented a scalar bed, and she's now invented this beautiful technology called EES. And Dr. DeVita has one of these systems in her office. Another colleague of mine has one of these systems. These are photon light electromagnetic, beautiful healing device systems that apparently are in some really powerful places around the world. This woman has a super duper vision for healing centers where hundreds of people could show up to benefit from what's going on with these light frequencies and energy frequencies that are being shared by this technology. Because she doesn't see the healing of us being a one-to-one, you and I working together one-on-one. It's just, no, it's got to be bigger than that, more than that, impacting more than that. And she said more than a few times that day, she reminds us, the energy that created the body heals the body. The energy that created the body heals everything, brings in new information, brings in new perspective, opens doors, closes the doors on other things. So in my journey, and it's been a journey, And I don't think the timing of this journey is by accident. 59 years old, I am right now, which is 1 year before the decade year of 60. And so I'll always say there's some interesting things that go on in these years before your decade year. They're not always easy to deal with, because it's almost like to help you or me to release ourselves from some things that have been dogging us maybe for years, maybe even for our whole life. So it's to challenge those, to bring those up to the surface, to allow the universe to repattern those, to bring those to love and gratitude finally, to lay those to rest. Sometimes that year before the decade year is about opening doors to certain things.
Well, in astrology, the two, possibly three biggest times are our Saturn return. And Saturn return is at like 29 to 31. And then again from 58 to 60. So it's every 29 years. So it's always a significant, especially then, but now.
Yeah. So it's that. So you're right. It's actually that. And it's also just the fact that it's 59 before 60.
Yeah.
So you also have the whammy of that. So I'm unraveling some things. And a lot of the stuff that's unraveling is got an anger base to it. And one of the things that the woman who was helping me with, from the body talk perspective was doing was opening several places in the diaphragm. Because one of the things that we learned in body talk, like the diaphragm's a big system, like a big part of the body. And it runs a very long way. Like people just don't even recognize, the depth and the bigness of this thing called the diaphragm. And she was actually helping to open some areas of the diaphragm that had been closed and were not functioning well, because they needed to be open, because they were the place where the active memory, all of the emotion, all of the thinking of that active memory needed to come into that space to flush out of the body, to literally clear out of the body. It was the pathway out of the body. So there are two pathways that I've known of in my years of learning about this work. One of them is the pathway out through the diaphragm, and the other one is a pathway out through the chakras to literally move a stuck emotion, psychic trauma, something through a particular chakra, where that chakra almost eats it. It almost like has the ability to reconcile it, bring light to it, digest it through, and move it through and out of the body. And so it was interesting that was one of the things she was called to do, is to bring some healing to two actual particular areas of diaphragm, which I actually felt impact in my breathing for. And then she could move the active memory. Both of them, when I was working in two different occasions with her, were anger memories, two different time frames in my life. And then my newest physiotherapy yesterday, where I said to her, I don't know what we're doing today, but I have a feeling it has something to do with sadness. And she said, why? And I said, because my husband just put his hands on my leg yesterday, because I asked him to, and he said, sadness. So I don't know where I just allowed for the sadness to be healed. I've allowed the sadness, given permission for the sadness to be found, to be healed, reconciled, fully administered to divinely. So maybe that's part of what we're doing today. And it didn't take long for us to be in a conversation. And it didn't take long for that conversation to land at a very difficult and trying time in my world, which was, you were in my life at that time. It goes back to 2011. So that's quite a long time ago now, right? That's a long time ago. And it goes back to a time when I had made a choice to go on a Hay House cruise because I was going to learn how to write a book. And I had the name of the book, and I was going to learn how to write a book, and I was going to go there, and I was going to have that experience. And I was pretty nervous about going on my own for that experience. I would have really liked to have done that with my husband, but affordably, we couldn't afford that. Nor did I think it was right for him to come on a cruise like that anyway, except he was going to be my company. And there was just a lot that went on during and after that cruise. There was a contest connected to that cruise, which I really was not attached to winning. It wasn't about winning, but I had envisioned that I would be a part of it. I would do whatever it was that would needed to be done to be a part of it, to learn, from that experience. But I had a very kind of troubling experience on that cruise. Walked off that cruise just kind of going, I learned about a bunch of stuff I don't want to learn about. Right. I wanted to learn about writing a book. Now I'm filled up with a bunch of information about Facebook and Twitter and all this social media stuff that I really just baffles me.
That's all
that I don't really, that I didn't want to have anything to do with. And it's just like, I just wanted to write a book. And now I feel like I've got a bunch of information that is useless to me. And so I was just like, to me, it was a waste of money in my world. Because it's just taken me some really uncomfortable places that I didn't want to go to. And there was just a lot that went on. I did end up kind of taking charge of my life, another anger moment, taking charge of my life in April before the contest was over. And literally within 1 month from a place of anger, I got everything done that needed to get done to administer, to give them what it was that they wanted to be a part of that contest. But I did it from a place of anger. And it's amazing what you can do with this universe from this place of anger. You don't have to be in a place of love. And I've said this a lot. You do not have to be in a place of love to partner with the universe and be very effective on that journey. Because I was. And the moment that I made that decision to get that job done, that I was not going to waste this money. I was going to get all that stuff. And it was just like the universe just came in, bowed down to my knees. It was just like, wow. And all of these coincidences happened, and all of these people came in to help, and all of these people came in to, it was a bizarre series of coincidences. And then it was done. And then they announced it was bizarre how they announced the winner of the contest. It was just bizarre. It was all done on Facebook. I couldn't find it. It wasn't about winning the contest. It was about how they did what they did. And why I say this and why it was so important is because it explained the sadness. When I got this letter, when I finally got this letter that said, thank you for your participation in blah, 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 please, if you want to join, if you want to submit your book to our whatever self-publishing unit, please feel free. And then it was like, thank you, Hay House team. Mm-hmm. Louise Hay was still alive at this time. I was so upset by this letter. I was so upset by the tone of this letter, the way this letter, and it was just like, and I just sat there and I went, she's gone. She's gone. Louise Hay was such an important part of my life. I will say to you, I credit this person for saving my life in my 20s. Saving my life at that time. I listened intently to her meditations, her morning and evening meditations at a time after I walked in the vortex. And I'll tell you, my life, my mind, my brain, insanity, which had taken hold, she really saved my life. And there I was experiencing in my mind, she's gone. She's gone. I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted my book to be published here. I wanted it because of her. And she's gone. I've missed my opportunity. She's gone. And to me, it's like, if she had been a part of this, really been a part of this contest, the letter would have been written very differently. It might have said all those things, but there would have been this big, giant thank you with the giant Louise lettering of her first name. And it was just and it wasn't there. And I was just like, wow, she's gone. So sad. So sad. It was like, that was the death of her. Interesting that she died on my birthday. So did Wayne Dyer. Oh. And she did.
Wow.
And that was the sadness. That was the sadness. I was revisiting the sadness of having missed my opportunity to be that author, miss that opportunity to work with her, be guided by her, that I'd missed my opportunity. And then more sadness, which was the sadness of who's going to take care of me now? Like, who's going to take care of me now? Who's going to save me now? If I get in trouble again, who's going to save me now? And just being with all of that. I was like, wow, I've revisited that. I've been there before. And I thought, wow, I'm still holding this. I'm still holding this. How? And I was actually quite aware at that time. And I went back and I found this. I found this very thing that I'm sharing with you. And it was still there. Like, why am I still holding this? Why am I still holding this? I saw this. I thought I did work on this. Right? It's like, it was very, very amazing to see, wow, not only is that anger piece, but it's, so anyways, so again, I feel like this is all connected into where it is that I'm going in my 60s, not being able to see a vision of that, really not being able to see a vision of that. And just kind of going, of course, I've hijacked some things. I've contained some things. I'm not allowing movement in certain areas. I've made decisions about things that I need to allow to be undecided. Decisions are very powerful. They're like stabs that go into the ground and then they ripple out all over the place. And the universe just goes, okay, that's how you see it, but that's fine. You decided.
Yeah.
So it's like a willingness for me to undo any stabs that I put into the ground of decisions from that time, of that contest, that stepping in to write a book or even think about writing a book or create in that way, any decisions that I made before I went onto that cruise, after I came off that cruise, after I got that letter, or even all the way up until now, that are not serving me. I have a willingness to just allow all of those to be in the hands of this divine and to be uncreated, lifted from the ground.
That's powerful.
Yeah, so that's where I am now, folks. I'm not 100% through this because I've still got some water in that knee and I'm going, wow, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I barely shared with you the stories of the anger the angers that have been part of this journey. But it is a journey. And it's a journey of wholeness and a journey of unwrapping and healing and allowing that to be the truth, which is the energy that built this body, created this body, heals this body. And that's what I want to come in to be helpful to all of this. And it's unwrapping some old pain, and that sometimes needs to be digested one by one. And, and obviously something nice is coming out of this for the 60s because I'm doing it now.
There you go.
So hopefully this all makes a bit of sense. And I'm glad we could talk about the water. I'm glad we could talk about some of these things that I think are just so important that we don't know about ourselves.
Yeah. Amazing.
So stay tuned.
Yes, and stay tuned. We will definitely be back. So we know that, we know that this is it, right? It's all about the journey. The journey never really ends. We just get to clear out different levels of it.
Yeah. Still in a bit of pain and in my process. And willing and allowing that process to be divinely guided and divinely administered to.
Well, thank you, Tracy. You've been listening to News of the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney, with
divine light, water intelligence,
divine
and
light,
the universe itself.
There you go. Divine waters, maybe.
Yeah, divine waters.
Divine waters. All right. We'll be back next month.
Okay.
Let's see what happens then.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.